I was 22 years old, working the overnight shift at a Walmart in the Midwest.
It was a normal job.
A normal store. A place I had walked into hundreds of times without thinking twice. Nothing about that night felt dangerous at first. But there was one small thing that didn't make sense, and I ignored it longer than I should have. I worked nights because the pay was a little better and the store was quiet. From 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., Walmart felt less like a store and more like a warehouse. Long aisles. Half the lights dimmed. The same low humming sound from the freezers that never stopped.
You get used to it fast.
That night started like every other shift. I clocked in, grabbed my handheld scanner, and checked the assignment board. I was restocking paper goods and cleaning up returns near the back of the store. It was raining outside, heavy enough that you could hear it tapping on the roof if you stood still long enough. There were maybe 8 employees in the entire building. 2 cashiers up front, 1 manager in the office, a maintenance guy waxing the floors. The rest of us spread out, working quietly. No customers.
No rules.
Just another night. Around midnight, I pushed a pallet of paper towels down aisle 19. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Then I noticed a shopping cart parked near the end of the aisle. That wasn't unusual by itself. Employees left carts everywhere. But this one was facing sideways, blocking part of the aisle, like someone had pushed it there in a hurry. I looked around, expecting to see another worker nearby. No one was there. I moved the cart out of the way and kept working. A few minutes later, I heard a soft rolling sound behind me. When I turned around, the cart was back. In the same spot. Same angle. I assumed someone was messing with me. Night shifts get boring, and people joke around. I laughed it off, pushed the cart aside again, and went back to stocking. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint, but wrong. Like sweat mixed with something metallic. Not food. Not cleaning chemicals. Something else. I checked my hands, thinking maybe I'd brushed against something. The smell didn't go away. I stood there for a moment listening. The store was quiet, but not empty quiet. There was a sound I couldn't place at first. A slow, uneven breathing noise, somewhere beyond the shelves. I told myself it was the air system, or my imagination. Still, the hair on my arms stood up. I remember thinking one simple thing. Someone else was in that aisle with me. The Walmart I worked at sat just outside a small town, right off a 2-lane highway. On one side of the building there was a dark field that stretched for miles. On the other side was a nearly empty parking lot at night, lit by tall light poles that buzzed and flickered when it rained. During the day the store was busy. At night, it felt cut off from everything else. It was early fall, and the rain had been coming down steadily since before my shift started. You couldn't see much through the front doors except wet asphalt and reflections from the parking lot lights. The sound of rain on the roof mixed with the low mechanical noise of the building. Freezers hummed. Air vents rattled. Every once in a while, the automatic doors would click as the wind pushed against them. I worked the overnight shift because I needed the money. I had moved out on my own a few months earlier, and this was the best-paying job I could find without a degree. The schedule was rough, but the work was simple. Stock shelves, organize returns, clean up whatever the daytime crowd left behind. I liked that there were no customers to deal with. That night, the store closed at 11 p.m. After that, the doors were locked and only employees were allowed inside. The manager on duty was a guy named Rick. He stayed in the office most of the night doing paperwork and checking cameras. Up front, too. Cashiers handled the last few customers before closing and then helped with returns. Maintenance ran the floor machines slowly through the main aisles, leaving long, shiny paths behind them. I was assigned to the back half of the store. Paper goods, cleaning supplies, and part of housewares. It was one of the quietest sections. Most of the lights back there were dimmed to save power, so the aisles stayed shadowy even with the overhead fixtures on. Tall shelves blocked your view from one aisle to the next, making it easy to feel alone even when other people were nearby. Normally, I worked with a guy named Jason. He was about my age and usually joked around to kill time. That night, he had called in sick. I didn't think much of it at the time. People called off all the time. It just meant I had to cover more aisles by myself. Everything about the shift felt routine. I scanned boxes, stacked paper towels, and broke down cardboard. I checked my phone occasionally to see how much time had passed. Midnight came and went without anything happening.
The store stayed quiet. No alarms. No announcements.
No reason to be on edge. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, that was the last point where the night still felt normal. After midnight, the store felt quieter than usual. Not empty, just muted. The floor machine shut off for a while, and the buzzing from the lights seemed louder because of it. Every sound carried farther than it should have. My own footsteps echoed as I moved between aisles. I finished stocking the last pallet of paper towels and pulled my scanner off my belt. I was about to move on to cleaning supplies when I heard a noise behind me. It sounded like cardboard shifting. I assumed someone else was breaking down boxes nearby. I called out, expecting an answer. No one replied. I waited a few seconds and listened. The noise didn't come back, but the feeling that followed didn't go away either. It felt like I had interrupted something. I shook it off and kept working. A few minutes later, I heard it again. This time it was clearer. Slow footsteps. Not rushed. Not heavy. Just steady, careful steps somewhere past the end of the aisle. I leaned out and looked down the main walkway. The lights there were dim, and I couldn't see anyone. I checked my handheld.
No one was assigned to my section.
I told myself it was probably Rick doing a walkthrough. Managers did that sometimes without saying anything. Still, something about the timing felt off. As I bent down to open another box, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow passed across the floor at the far end of the aisle. It was quick, but it didn't match the pattern of the lights overhead. I stood up straight and looked again. The aisle was empty. The air felt heavier after that. The normal store smells were gone.
No plastic. No cleaner.
Just that same faint, wrong odor I had noticed earlier. I tried to place it and couldn't. It made my stomach tighten. Then I heard breathing. At first, I thought it was mine. I held my breath. The sound kept going.
Slow.
Uneven. Like someone trying to stay quiet. It wasn't loud, but it was close enough that I could hear it between the shelves. I took a step back and listened harder. The breathing stopped. That was worse. I stood there for a full minute, not moving, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did.
No footsteps. No voices.
Just the steady hum of the store. I told myself I was tired. Overnight shifts mess with your head. I had been alone in that section for too long, and my mind was filling in gaps that didn't exist. That explanation made sense. I wanted it to be true. I picked up my scanner and moved toward the end of the aisle. My plan was simple. I'd step into the main walkway where it was brighter and call Rick on the radio, just to check in. Halfway down the aisle, the lights behind me shut off. They didn't flicker. They didn't dim. They went out all at once. The aisle dropped into shadow, and I suddenly felt very sure of one thing. I wasn't alone back there anymore. When the lights went out behind me, I froze. I didn't hear a switch click or a breaker pop. The aisle just went dark, like someone had decided I didn't need to see back there anymore. The main walkway was still lit, but the shelves cast long shadows that stretched toward me. I slowly turned around. The darkness between the shelves looked thick, almost solid. I waited for my eyes to adjust, hoping I'd see an employee vest or some sign that this was normal. I didn't. That smell was stronger now. It wasn't coming from the boxes or the shelves. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the aisle. I took another step back toward the light, careful not to make noise. My scanner slipped in my hand, and the plastic clacked softly against the shelf. The breathing started again. This time, it was closer. Too close to explain away. It came from my left, somewhere near the middle of the aisle.
Slow in.
Slow out. Like whoever it was didn't care if I heard them anymore. I whispered, "Hello." My voice sounded wrong in the dark, thin and shaky. The breathing stopped again. Then I heard movement. Something brushed against cardboard. A soft scrape, like a shoe sliding instead of lifting. I backed up until my shoulder hit the end cap. My heart was beating hard enough that I thought they might hear it. I reached for my radio, clipped to my vest. My fingers felt numb as I pressed the button. Rick, I said quietly. Can you come to aisle 19? Static answered first. Then Rick's voice came through, distorted and calm. What's up? Before I could answer, something shifted in the aisle. A shape moved between the shelves. Not fast, just enough to show it was there. A person-sized outline blocking what little light filtered in. I didn't respond on the radio. I couldn't take my eyes off the shape. It leaned forward slightly. I saw a shoulder, then a head. No face yet, just the outline of someone standing where no one should have been. That's when I understood I was cornered. Behind me was the dark aisle. In front of me was the main walkway, but stepping into it meant fully exposing myself. I had no idea how close the person was or how fast they could move. The shape took a step forward, then another. I smelled sweat now, strong and sour. The person was close enough that I could hear fabric shifting as they moved. I raised my scanner without thinking, like it could protect me. Stop, I said. My voice cracked. The person didn't answer. They stepped into the dim edge of the light. I saw a man's face for the first time.
Pale.
Unshaven. Eyes locked on me like I was something he had been waiting for. He smiled slightly. Not friendly. Not angry. Just aware. That was when I knew this wasn't a mistake. He wasn't lost. He wasn't an employee. He had been watching me the entire time. When the man stepped fully into the light, my body reacted before my mind did. I dropped the scanner and ran. I didn't think about where I was going. I just moved toward the front of the store, toward anything that wasn't dark and narrow. I heard him move immediately. His footsteps were fast now. No more hiding. No more slow breathing. Shoes slapped against the tile behind me, close enough that I could tell he wasn't far. I cut into the main walkway and nearly slipped on the freshly cleaned floor. The store felt huge and empty, every aisle stretching out like it went on forever. I screamed for help, my voice echoing off the high ceiling, but no one answered. I ran past housewares and electronics, my lungs burning. I could hear him behind me, gaining ground. Every time I glanced back, he was closer. His face was focused, calm, like this was something he had done before. I reached the front of the store and veered toward the cash office. The door was already locked, but I pounded on it anyway, yelling Rick's name. The footsteps were right behind me now. I could hear his breathing again, loud and steady. The door opened just enough for me to squeeze through. Rick pulled me inside and slammed it shut. A second later, the door shook as the man hit it from the other side. Hard. Once. Then again. Rick locked the deadbolt with shaking hands and pushed a metal cabinet in front of the door. We stood there in silence, listening. The man kicked the door twice more, then stopped. We waited. Seconds stretched out. Then minutes. I called 911 while Rick stayed pressed against the door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. On the phone, I tried to explain what was happening, but my words came out rushed and uneven. After a while, we heard footsteps moving away. Slow again. Controlled. Like he knew there was no rush. The police arrived within minutes, though it felt much longer. Officers moved through the store with flashlights, calling out commands. I stayed in the office, sitting on the floor, my back against the wall, listening to radios crackle. They found the man near the back of the store, trying to climb into the ceiling above the bathrooms. He didn't resist. He didn't say anything. He just stared straight ahead while they handcuffed him. An officer later told me that if I had waited even a few more seconds before running, he would have reached me. That thought made my stomach turn. I realized then how close I had come to not making it out at all. After the police took the man away, the store stayed closed for the rest of the night. Yellow tape went up around the back hallways and the bathroom area. Most of the employees were sent home. I stayed behind to give a statement, sitting in the manager's office while rain continued to hit the roof. One of the officers asked me to walk through the store with him to point out where I first saw the man. My legs felt weak, but I agreed. I wanted it to be over. I wanted to see that the aisles were empty again. When we reached aisle 19, the officer shined his flashlight between the shelves. That's when I noticed something I had missed before. Several boxes had been opened carefully, not torn or crushed. Inside them were empty food packages. protein bars, crackers, bottled water. The officer told me they had found more in other aisles. Enough to last days. Then he showed me the space above the bathroom ceiling where the man had been hiding. There was a blanket stuffed behind the pipes, a backpack, extra clothes. He hadn't just wandered in that night. He had been living there. What shook me the most came next. The officer explained that the man had been arrested at another Walmart 2 towns over just weeks earlier. Same situation. Overnight shift. Same section of the store. Same pattern of behavior. He waited until he learned employee routines. He learned where the lights shut off. He learned where cameras didn't reach. I asked why he always stayed hidden instead of stealing and leaving. The officer paused before answering.
He wasn't there to steal, he said.
He was watching. They checked security footage going back several nights. On the recordings, you could see small movements in the shadows of the aisles while employees worked. Sometimes just the edge of a face. Sometimes a hand pulling back behind a shelf. On one clip, I saw myself stocking paper towels. Behind me, at the end of the aisle, the man stood still, watching. I had no idea he was there. The officer told me something else before we finished. The man had a knife on him when they arrested him. It wasn't new. It was worn down, like it had been carried for a long time. He was waiting for the right moment, the officer said. That was the moment everything changed for me. I realized the encounter wasn't random. I wasn't unlucky. I had been chosen. I didn't go back to work after that night. I told Walmart I needed time off, and a week later I quit. No job was worth feeling like that again. For a while, I tried to convince myself that it was over. The man was arrested. The store was searched. The danger was gone. That's what I told myself anyway. A few weeks later, a detective called me to follow up. He asked if I remembered anything else about the man. His face.
His voice.
The way he moved. I told him everything I could. Before hanging up, I asked a question that had been bothering me since that night. Did he say why he picked that store? The detective was quiet for a moment.
He didn't, he said.
And he stopped talking altogether. That answer stuck with me. I started noticing things after that. Small things. When I went grocery shopping, I caught myself checking the ends of aisles before stepping into them. I avoided stores late at night. If I heard someone breathing nearby, even in a crowded place, my chest tightened. One night, months later, I stopped at a different Walmart while driving through another town. It was early evening, still busy. Families.
Kids.
Normal noise. I told myself it was safe. As I walked past the paper goods aisle, I smelled something familiar.
Faint.
Sour.
Wrong.
I froze. At the end of the aisle, a shopping cart sat sideways, blocking part of the path. No one was near it. I stood there for several seconds, my heart pounding, waiting to see if it would move. It didn't. I left the store without buying anything. The police never called me back with a trial date. When I checked online later, I couldn't find the man's name. No record.
No updates.
It was like he had disappeared into the system. Sometimes I think about the security footage, about how many nights he stood just out of sight, watching people who had no idea he was there. I wonder how many times that happens in places we trust because they feel familiar. Even now, when I'm in a quiet store and the lights dim slightly, I listen. I don't know if he's still locked up. I don't know if there were others like him. All I know is this. Every time I hear slow breathing in a place that should be empty, I don't turn around anymore. I didn't go back to work after that night. I told Walmart I needed time off, and a week later I quit. No job was worth feeling like that again. For a while, I tried to convince myself that it was over. The man was arrested. The store was searched. The danger was gone. That's what I told myself, anyway. But it wasn't. A few weeks later, a detective called me to follow up. He asked if I remembered anything else about the man, his face, his voice, the way he moved. I told him everything I could. Before hanging up, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me since that night. Did he say why he picked that store? The detective paused, long enough that I knew he didn't want to answer. He didn't, he said finally, and he stopped talking altogether. They couldn't get anything from him. That answer didn't help. If anything, it made it worse. He didn't need a reason. He didn't explain. He just watched. I started noticing things after that. Small things that felt like reminders. When I went grocery shopping, I found myself checking the ends of aisles before stepping in. I avoided stores late at night. I flinched when someone brushed past me in a crowded place, even when it was obvious they meant no harm. One night, months later, I was driving through another town. I stopped at a Walmart because I needed water. Early evening, still busy. Families.
Kids.
The normal noise of people who think the world is safe. I told myself it was fine. As I walked past the paper goods aisle, I smelled something familiar. Faint.
Sour. Wrong.
It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I froze. At the end of the aisle, a shopping cart sat sideways, blocking part of the path. No one was near it. I stood there for several seconds, heart pounding, waiting to see if it would move. It didn't. I left the store without buying anything. Weeks later, I tried to put it out of my mind, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about the security footage, about how many nights he stood just out of sight, watching people who had no idea he was there. I wonder how many stores across the country had someone like him hiding in the shadows, waiting, studying routines, learning how people moved. I never got a trial update. I searched online. No record. No news. It was like he vanished. And the worst part? I can't stop imagining him still out there. Somewhere. Waiting for the right night. Waiting for someone alone. Someone like I was. Even now, when I'm in a quiet store and the lights flicker, I stop. I listen. The air seems heavier, as if it's holding its breath with me. Sometimes, I swear I hear slow, uneven breathing coming from an empty aisle. It's always just behind me. I don't turn around anymore. And sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I see him in the shadows just watching. Not moving, not speaking, just waiting. And I realize, I still don't know if he's gone. I still don't know if the case was ever solved. I still don't know who he really was. And every time I walk past a darkened aisle, a part of me wonders, what if he's still out there, watching, learning, waiting for the next normal night to become his?